Have you ever just stopped and noticed, I mean really noticed, how obsessed we seem to be with control
Yeah.
in, well, pretty much everything?
It's kind of everywhere, isn't it?
Yeah. We engineer our morning routines down to the minute. We try to optimize our relationships, our finances, even, our own brain chemistry.
Right. There's this underlying belief, this assumption that power equals control. That if we can just predict everything, manage everything, then peace will somehow follow.
It's this really seductive promise, isn't it? A perfectly managed life.
Absolutely. But then there's the paradox.
Exactly. The more we seem to tighten that grip, trying to force things, the more life just sort of slips through our fingers. And that anxiety, that burnout, everyone seems to be feeling, that kind of deep existential tiredness. I mean, it's not just random.
Our sources suggest it's actually feedback, like spiritual feedback.
Yeah.
Symptoms telling us something is fundamentally, well, misaligned.
Misaligned.
Yeah.
As if the universe is kind of nudging us, saying, hey, this way you're trying to control everything. It's a myth, and it's costing you. Okay, let's unpack this.
Let's do it.
Because today, our mission, our deep dive, is into this really ancient, but honestly incredibly countercultural idea, surrender.
And it's so important to define what we mean by surrender here.
Yes. Crucial. This isn't about weakness or just rolling over and giving up. Not passivity.
No, definitely not. It's more like an active attunement, attuning into something deeper, a kind of order, a flow that's already there beneath everything.
And to help us explore this, we're diving into some really fascinating material, primarily a book called Flow and Surrender, Tao, Islam, and the Quantum Path to Peace by Skylar Fiction.
Which does a fantastic job of weaving together insights from, well, really different sources.
Yeah.
The Qur'an, the Tao Te Ching.
And this contemporary spiritual text, Breath of the Cosmos, which draws on quantum ideas. It's quite a mix.
It really is. And what's fascinating here, truly fascinating, is that this realization that maybe our idea of control is flawed, maybe it's an illusion, it's not new at all.
Way before algorithms and optimization apps.
Exactly. Long before all that, these three, quite profound traditions, centuries and continents apart, they saw this. They recognized this truth.
And they offered an alternative.
A really compelling one. And what pulls them together isn't some shared dogma, but this striking shared direction, a call to let go.
Stop fighting the current.
Precisely. Stop striving against reality. Instead, float, yield, flow with it.
So how does that look in practice in these different traditions?
Well, we'll see these beautiful expressions of surrender. In Islam, there's tawakkul, this deep, active trust in the divine decree.
Okay.
In Taoism, there's wu wei. You often hear it translated as non-action or effortless action, the art of not forcing things.
Right, the path of least resistance almost.
Kind of, but in a very profound way. And then there's this modern angle from quantum pantheism, which talks about surrendering to the indeterminate nature of reality itself, the quantum field.
Indeterminate but beautiful, you said.
Exactly. There's an underlying beauty and structure even in the uncertainty. And in every single one of these approaches, we find not fatalism, not just giving up,
but freedom.
Freedom and resonance, a kind of deep connection, not resignation at all. There's this quote from Breath of the Cosmos that just nails it. You were not made to dominate the world. You were made to dance with it.
Wow, dance with it.
Yeah. And the peace we're all searching for, it's probably not waiting at the end of more striving, more control. It's waiting quietly right there in the place where we finally stop grasping.
That quote really hits home. You are not made to dominate the world. You are made to dance with it. It brings us right back to that modern dilemma. We're pushed constantly, aren't we, to engineer, optimize, master everything.
It's like a default setting now.
Yeah, the instinct.
Yeah.
But like we said, that relentless chase often leads straight to anxiety, burnout, that deep fatigue. The source calls it spiritual feedback. Symptoms of being fundamentally out of sync.
Misaligned.
Misaligned, right. I mean, think about it. For you listening, does that pattern sound familiar? Trying to juggle everything, keep all the plates spinning, just to feel them all start to wobble.
And surrender, this idea we're exploring, emerges as the antidote, the counterbalance to that modern condition.
But again, not weakness.
Absolutely not. It's crucial we keep stressing that. It's not giving up. It's this active, conscious tuning in, attunement to a deeper order. Let's look at how the traditions frame it.
Okay, where do we start?
Let's start with Islam. The word Islam itself, its root in Arabic, as-Islam, actually means both peace and submission.
Ah, interesting connection. Peace and submission.
Right. So Peace, salam, is found through submission, Islam, to the will of Allah, to God. It's not just wordplay, it's an existential stance. It's about aligning your heart, your will, your whole being with the deeper sacred order of things as understood to be ordained by the Creator.
So human control is seen as limited.
Limited and often misguided. True peace, from this perspective, really begins right where that illusion of our own control finally ends.
Okay, and Taoism, it sounds quieter.
It is. Taoism offers this more poetic invitation. The core idea is wu wei, often translated as non-action.
Which sounds passive, but you said it isn't?
Exactly. It's far from passive. It's more like doing nothing and thereby doing everything. The idea is action that's so perfectly aligned with the natural flow of the universe, the Tao, that it feels completely effortless.
So trying to control things is like swimming upstream against the Tao.
Precisely. It's resisting the fundamental current. To flow with the Tao, that's how you return to the source, to that original harmony.
And then the quantum angle, how does that fit in?
Well, it's striking, isn't it? Modern physics, particularly through the lens of quantum pantheism in Breath of the Cosmos, describes reality not as some fixed machine.
Like Newton's clockwork universe.
Right, but as a divine field, a field that's humming with potential, with coherence, but it fundamentally resists being pinned down, being controlled.
So surrender becomes necessary, physically.
That's the argument. It's presented almost as a physical necessity, because we're not just living in uncertainty, we are, in a way, born of it. Remember that quote, you were never meant to predict the world, you were meant to participate in it.
Participate, not predict. That changes everything.
It really does. We're part of the unfolding.
So, okay, these three very different viewpoints, Islam's submission, Taoism's flow, quantum's participation, they don't share doctrines, but they point the same way. Towards letting go.
Exactly. The direction is shared. It's a call to let go, yield, flow.
And the outcome isn't losing power, but gaining freedom.
Freedom and resonance, that sense of being in tune. It's not fatalism, it's liberation.
Okay, this convergence is powerful. Now you said, here's where it gets really interesting. Let's dive deeper. Let's start with Islam again, and this idea of surrender.
Right. Islamic surrender, Islam, it's truly existential. It's about aligning your entire being. And central to this is tawakkul.
Which you translated as active trust.
Active, profound trust in God, regardless of the circumstances. The Qur'an says, put your trust in Allah. Indeed, Allah loves those who rely upon him. Notice the word rely. It implies relationship, intimacy.
So surrender isn't just duty, it's love. Intimacy.
It's a beautiful way to put it. It's framed as an expression of love, of deep trust, not just, reluctant servitude.
That idea of trust leading to inner peace, even when things seem to go wrong, is really appealing. But how does it avoid becoming passive acceptance, especially when facing injustice? Does it mean you just don't act?
That's a critical point. And no, the theology isn't naive in that way. It absolutely doesn't mean ignoring injustice or silencing protest. The Prophet Muhammad himself was very active in resisting oppression. And he taught that jihad, which is so often misunderstood, is primarily an inward struggle, a war against the ego, the nafs, and its constant desire to control everything.
So the surrender is more about releasing inner arrogance than outer circumstances.
Exactly. It's a release from pride, not a resignation to tyranny. It's that inner turning, that opening to God's wisdom and plan. And this active trust cultivates an inner stillness called rida, contentment.
Contentment even when things don't go your way.
Yes, based on the understanding that one's life is already written with meaning. There's a famous verse. Perhaps you dislike a thing and it is good for you, and perhaps you love a thing and it is bad for you. Allah knows while you know not.
Trusting the bigger picture, even when you can't see it.
Precisely. And Islam identifies pride as the great enemy of this surrender. Look at the story of Iblis, or Satan. He believed in God, but his ego, his pride, prevented him from submitting.
So pride divides, surrender unites.
Beautifully put. It dissolves the self into divine trust. The Qur'an then becomes less a rule book and more a guide to inner alignment, trusting the one who shaped reality. It leads to this transcendent surrender, like the mystic Rabia al-Adawiyya prayed.
What did she say?
She said, basically, "Oh Lord, if I worship you fearing hell, burn me in hell. If I worship you hoping for paradise, exclude me. But if I worship you for your own sake, don't withhold your everlasting beauty." It's about love, beyond reward or punishment.
Wow. That's incredibly profound. Shifting from that intense inner focus of Islam to Taoism and Wu Wei, the way of water. Islam calls for submission to God's will, but Taoism seems gentler, more poetic. Do nothing and thereby do everything. How does that work in practice? Well, Wu Wei, this non-action, isn't about sitting on your hands or like it's action that's so perfectly in sync with the universe's natural flow, the Tao, that it feels effortless.
Effortless action.
Yeah. Trying to force things, impose your will. That's seen as resisting the Tao, the fundamental way of things. Flowing with it is how you get back to the source. The Tao Te Ching even starts by saying, the real Tao, the ultimate truth, can't be pinned down by words or concepts. The way that can be spoken of is not the constant way.
It has to be lived, not just understood intellectually.
Exactly. Forcing life violates its essence. So peace comes through this unforced, natural alignment. And the best image for this is water. Lao Tzu says, the best way to live is to be like water.
Why water?
Think about it. Water flows around obstacles, doesn't fight them head on. Yet over time, it can carve mountains. It's soft, it yields, but it's incredibly persistent and powerful.
So living like water means humility, adaptability.
And this quiet strength that doesn't need to shout. A Taoist sage, they don't conquer, they harmonize, they guide. That's why Wu Wei is about right action, action that's so in flow it's almost invisible. When nothing is done, nothing is left undone. True mastery doesn't make a big show.
It's interesting. That idea of returning to a natural state feels very similar to Islam's concept of fitra, that innate God-given nature we're born with.
That's a great connection. Both seem to be saying the path home isn't about fighting outwards, but about letting go inwards, shedding the stuff that obstructs our natural harmony.
Releasing control.
Right. Taoism acknowledges suffering, but it teaches not to cling to it. Yield and overcome, bend and be straight, empty and be full. It's paradoxical. By yielding, you become whole, rigidity breaks, softness endures.
And morality. Does it come from rules?
No. True virtue, samiti, arises naturally when you're aligned with the Tao. No need for lists of commandments. Lao Tzu even says the more laws and commands there are, the more thieves and robbers there will be. Harmony unfolds when you stop manipulating it. In our stressed-out, always striving world, this Taoist wisdom feels like a quiet rebellion, doesn't it?
It really does. A rebellion against burnout and the illusion that we can or should control everything. Peace isn't achieved. It emerges when we stop forcing. And it's just amazing how these ancient ideas resonate with all things modern physics. The Qur'an speaks of divine decree, the Tao Te Ching whispers about the way, and then quantum physics comes along with its own strange, fascinating story.
A story that resists certainty.
Deeply resists certainty. It insists on possibility. It reveals a universe that's way more fluid, more dynamic than fixed. And in that quantum pantheist view from Breath of the Cosmos, surrender isn't just a nice spiritual idea.
It's a physical necessity.
That's the claim. Because we're fundamentally creatures of uncertainty. At the quantum level, reality isn't solid until it's, well, interacted with.
The observer effect.
Exactly. A particle isn't just a little ball bearing. It's described as a spread of probabilities, a wave function. It only collapses into a definite state here, not there when it's observed or measured.
So reality is relational. It waits for us, in a way.
In a very real sense, yes. Until measured, it exists in superposition, alive with potential, but undefined. The universe acts more like a poem than a machine.
So, the quantum uncertainty, things only becoming definite through interaction, that mirrors the spiritual act of letting go of fixed outcomes, embracing possibility.
Precisely. The mystic learns to release their grip on certainty. The physicist, facing quantum reality, has to accept that outcomes emerge through relationship. They aren't predetermined. That's the core message from Breath of the Cosmos. You were never meant to predict the world. You were meant to participate in it.
Participate, not predict. Ride the wave, don't control it.
You got it. It challenges our whole Western obsession with control, replacing Newton's clockwork with indeterminacy, entanglement, emergence. It demands humility, trust.
But it's not just chaos, right? There's order underneath.
Well, absolutely. It's not chaos. It's profound order, a web of correlation and coherence. Think about quantum entanglement particles influencing each other instantly over vast distances. It screams interconnectedness.
Like the mystic's unity.
Exactly. It echoes the Qur'an. To Allah belongs whatever is in the heavens and whatever is in the earth. Nothing is separate. And the Tao, the great Tao, flows everywhere. This quantum field is invisible but real, like the Tao, like God's presence. Not a puppeteer, but a pulse.
And Breath of the Cosmos calls this field divine, alive.
Yes. God is not distant. God is the frequency behind form, the breath in every becoming.
So quantum surrender is about resonance, living in tune with that field.
It is, Living in resonance, not resistance. Accepting our limits, embracing this sacred participatory role. We're in the world and our presence shapes it. It's a quantum humility that mirrors the Islamic call to walk gently and the Taoist invitation to live without forcing.
So Islam, Taoism, quantum, all pointing to peace through attunement, not domination.
Yielding leads to alignment. Trust leads to wisdom. Letting go leads to rest. In all three.
That's a powerful convergence. It really underscores that surrender isn't about giving up on something, but giving over to something larger, a flow, a will. What exactly is that larger something in these traditions?
That's the next layer. For a Muslim, that force is unequivocally qadar, the divine decree of Allah. It encompasses everything, seen and unseen.
And that phrase, inshallah, if Allah wills.
It's more than just piety. The Qur'an actually instructs believers not to say, I will do that tomorrow, without adding, if Allah wills. It's a constant reminder, a metaphysical posture acknowledging that our plans are fragile, ultimately dependent on divine permission.
So the universe isn't random, but it's also not entirely ours to command.
Correct. It unfolds according to a will understood as just all-knowing, intricately involved. Surrendering to qadar isn't apathy, it's walking in trust, even when the path forward is foggy.
And in Taoism, the equivalent is the Tao itself, the nameless way.
Yes, the Tao governs everything, but without striving, without commanding like a monarch. It's more like a constant becoming, a process. Lao Tzu says, the great Tao flows everywhere. It accomplishes its task, but does not claim credit.
So it guides without boasting, like wind or silence.
Beautifully put. It creates, nourishes, guides, but invisibly. It's the pattern behind things. Like Allah's will, you can't fully grasp it intellectually. You follow it, you feel it, you flow with it.
What's striking is how both seem to discourage resistance. Fighting God's decree or forcing against the Tao both lead to getting lost.
Absolutely. Wisdom lies in conquered, in harmony, not in conquest. Remember the Qur'an. Perhaps you hate a thing and it is good for you.
Right, in the Tao Te Ching. The way never does anything, and yet nothing is left undone. Trust is survival.
Exactly. Both embrace these deep paradoxes. Islam holds space for human will and responsibility alongside divine decree. The Tao flows but doesn't coerce, and the mystery is the more you align with that sacred flow, the freer you actually become.
So subtle differences, Islam's will is often spoken, revealed. The Tao's is silent, intuitive.
Yes, one feels more like the word of God, the other the breath of nature. But neither is rigid fate. Both paint a picture of an intelligent, meaningful, living universe. Peace comes from getting back on the path, not fighting it.
And the quantum connection again.
Breath of the Cosmos puts it starkly. Whether you call it God or Tao or field, you cannot escape the rhythm of the whole. You can only sing with it or dissonate and suffer. Divine will becomes frequency. Surrender becomes making music with reality.
Tuning yourself to the underlying harmony.
Precisely. Which leads to the crucial question, what stops us? What causes that dissonance, that tension, that suffering? What gets in the way of singing with the harmony?
And the answer consistently seems to be the ego.
Yes, that's the ultimate challenge. The concept is simple, maybe, but surrendering the self, that part of us that clings, defines, defends, insists on me versus not me. That's the hard part.
The crucifixion, as one source put it.
It can feel that way, whether it's Islamic submission, Taoist release, or quantum humility. The biggest block isn't usually outside us. It's the ego, that false self, that internal pull demanding control, refusing trust.
How does Islam talk about this inner obstacle?
It uses the term nafs. It's complex, often meaning the lower self, the egoic drive. Islamic teachings talk about its stages, from the nafs al-amara, the self that inclines towards wrongdoing.
A demanding self.
Right, all the way to the nafs al-mutmanina, the tranquil soul, the self at peace, resting in God's will. The Qur'an says paradise is for the one who feared the position of his Lord and prevented the soul from unlawful inclination.
So the main battle is internal, taming the ego, not indulging it.
Exactly.
And Taoism, does it see ego as the root problem too?
Very much so. The Tao Te Ching talks about people who accumulate more and more, but end up with nothing real. The path of the Taoist sage is about shedding identity, ambition. They don't compete or boast.
The sage puts himself last and becomes first.
He is detached and thus at one with all. Through selflessness, he fulfills himself. It's that paradoxical power again. Like Islam, the path is subtraction, removing what blocks the truth.
And breadth of the cosmos. How does it frame the ego from a quantum perspective?
It calls the ego the false boundary we draw around our being. It says, you are not your story. The ego is static. The cosmos is dynamic. The longer you grip the mask, the less air you can breathe.
Surrender is survival again. Can't resonate if you're stuck in your own broadcast.
Right. And quantum physics itself undermines the fixed ego. If observation changes reality, if selfhood emerges through interaction, then the ego isn't the driver. It's more like a result, a pattern. The self is a wave, always changing, dependent on the world. It shatters the myth of the isolated individual we're co-created.
That must be terrifying for the ego. It wants permanence, control, glory.
Absolutely. And all three traditions work to dismantle those illusions. To Allah we belong, and to Him we return. Mastering yourself is true power. In quantum terms, mastery is coherence, losing the self into something wider, deeper, and more alive.
So the work is the same. Mystic, sage, quantum pilgrim, releasing the false self to find the real one.
Yes. And it's not always easy. The ego fights back. But all paths to peace require this letting go. Rumi said, "Try not to resist the changes. Let life live through you." Tao Tzu. He who tries to shine dims his own light.
Especially relevant today in this age of ego where we're told to build our brand, curate ourselves.
Instead of emptying ourselves. But the old wisdom holds. Only the empty cup can be filled. Only the surrendered soul finds freedom. So, how does this profound letting go actually show up day to day, practically?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Talking about it is one thing, but living it. When the world throws curveballs, when things don't go our way, how do we actually embody this trust in the everyday grind?
And it can be embodied. Surrender isn't just a peak experience, it's a lifestyle, woven into the ordinary moments. How we respond when things don't go our way, that's where the rubber meets the road.
So how does Islam weave it into daily life?
Very intentionally. Take the 5 daily prayers, Salah. They're not just obligations. They're seen as recalibrations. 5 times a day, a return to that posture of submission, forehead to the ground, soul reconnecting to the source. The body becomes an instrument of remembering.
Establish prayer for my remembrance, a rhythm of return.
Exactly. And it goes beyond prayer. It's ideally embedded in how one eats, works, sleeps, interacts. Indeed, my prayer, my rites, my living, and my dying are for Allah. It aims for radical integration.
And things like fasting, charity.
Yes. Fasting surrenders appetite. Charity surrenders ownership. The Hajj pilgrimage surrenders individual identity to the collective. Through repetition, the ego is meant to erode. Die before you die. Let the ego die so the true self can live.
Now, Taoism sounds quite different. No set rituals.
Right. Taoism offers reminders, not rules. Soften. Slow down. Notice, it asks. Are you pushing your words or letting them arise naturally? Arguing to win or speaking to understand? Gripping your schedule or greeting the day openly?
It warns against ambition, too, doesn't it? Chase after money and security, and your heart will never unclench.
Exactly. Instead of reaching for things, the Taoist life leans back, listens, flows.
So what does this mean for us now in our busy lives?
Well, maybe surrender looks like leaving some white space in your calendar, resisting the urge to fill every second. In a noisy world, maybe it's choosing moments of silence. In endless debates, maybe it's the power of saying nothing.
Peace comes from resonance, and resonance begins with listening. That quote again.
Yes. And quantum physics offers another practical angle. Presence. If the observer changes the observed, then how you observe matters immensely.
Observation is prayer.
Kind of. How do you greet your child, your neighbor, your reflection? With openness or with judgment already loaded? To collapse reality gently means observing gently, with awareness, with compassion. It's communion.
And releasing outcomes. That's huge for our goal-obsessed culture.
It is. Islam teaches tawakkul, trust after effort. Tie your camel first, then trust God. Taoism teaches wu wei, act in alignment, but don't force the result. The quantum view sees the future as possibility. Do your part, then let go.
Even in conflict, surrender has power there.
Immense power. Remember the Qur'an. Repel evil with that which is better, and Tao, a soft answer breaks the bone. The quantum field responds to coherence, not dominance. A surrendered life can be disarming. It moves with grace because it's stopped fighting reality.
And surrender to self. Authenticity.
Yes. Can you stop performing? Be honest. Cry without shame. Be unsure and still walk forward. The field doesn't need your perfection, just your presence. Surrender is the start of your real story.
But the ego keeps coming back.
Of course. Control creeps in. So we begin again. Breathe. Bow, literally or figuratively. Loosen the grip. Surrender isn't a destination. It's a rhythm, a pulse. You can start today. Ask, where am I resisting? Then, what would trust look like right here?
That's such a practical, immediate way to approach it. And building on that, let's go even deeper into that internal space. How do we communicate with the divine, the universe, whatever we call it? What's the language of yielding? Prayer. Silence.
This is where it gets really subtle. Prayer is often thought of as asking for things, right? Performance, almost. But across these traditions, the deepest prayer isn't speaking, it's surrender. It's becoming silent enough that words aren't needed anymore.
Different approaches, though. Islam, Taoism, quantum.
Very different on the surface. Islam formalizes prayer intensely. Taoism almost dissolves the need for formal prayer into being. Quantum pantheism reframes it as resonance, as observation. But underneath, they all point to this act of letting go into presence.
Tell me about Salat in Islam again, from this angle.
Salat, the ritual prayer, is this structured encounter. Every movement, standing, bowing, prostrating, is a physical enactment of humility. The tongue recites scripture, yes, but the soul is meant to speak awe, presence.
The mirage, the ascension.
Exactly. The prophet called prayer the believer's ascension, a daily climb beyond the mundane, dissolving the ego. Establish prayer for my remembrance. It's that rhythm of return, aligning yourself again and again.
In Taoism. No rituals, but it sanctifies stillness.
Absolutely. To the mind that is still, the whole universe surrenders. The Tao isn't a being you persuade with words. It is the flow. So the deepest communion isn't speech. It's alignment. Be silent, hear the water, stop grasping, let the Tao flow in.
How does Breath of the Cosmos see prayer, then? As wave collapse?
It's a fascinating idea. You pray by the way you observe. Your attention is the altar, your gaze the invocation. What you love becomes real. Since the observer shapes the outcome, how you observe is your prayer. Attention given with love, beholding, not just asking.
So the Muslim prostrating, the Taoist sitting quietly, the quantum mystic watching a flame. They're all yielding, making space.
Essentially, yes. Lowering their own noise to hear the underlying hum. Which is hard because our world fears silence, doesn't it? We fill every gap.
Silence equals failure, almost.
But the mystics say, silence isn't empty. It's full. It's presence. Islam talks about sabr, patient endurance, sitting quietly in remembrance. The servants of the most merciful, when the ignorant address them, they say words of peace. Silence as an ethic.
And Taoism is even more radical about speech.
Those who know do not speak. Those who speak do not know. Wisdom in stillness. Understanding in quiet. Both traditions warn against noise, external and internal noise, like control, comparison, endless inner chatter. They invite us into the quiet where things unfold naturally.
So a surrendered life has to be a listening life.
Yes. Quiet enough to hear God, or the Tao, or the field. Quiet enough to hear others. Quiet enough even to hear yourself beneath the ego's noise. Heart softened by remembrance. Spirit emptied of tension. Mind coherent with the field.
And when we do speak...
After silence has had its say, words should be few and full. The prophet. Speak good or remain silent, Lao Tzu. Those who speak seldom are natural. The field responds to coherence. The language of yielding is lived, the sigh, the stillness, the pause. Deeper than words. Prayer becomes what you stop saying the moment you disappear and only presence remains.
That completely reframes communication. And power, too. It forces us to ask, what if real power isn't loud and forceful? What if it's soft, gentle?
That's the radical challenge these traditions throw down. We're taught power is hard, sharp, dominant. But that model breaks things. Bodies, societies, souls. The truth emerging here is different. Real power flows through softness. It hides in yielding. It transforms by integrating, not forcing.
How does Islam express this? God is powerful, surely.
Immensely powerful. Al-Jabbar, the compeller. But also, primarily, Ar-Rahman, the most compassionate. Mercy is central. There's a hadith, Allah is gentle and loves gentleness in all matters. Gentleness isn't weakness. It's a divine attribute, a source of strength.
And the inner jihad again.
Yes, the greater jihad is the struggle against the ego, nafs. That takes immense courage, surrendering your own ego, not crushing others. The true warrior conquers their lower self with patience and mercy.
And Taoism is almost defined by softness, isn't it?
Yeah.
The water analogy.
Exactly. Water is fluid, soft, and yielding. But water will wear away rock. The sage doesn't overpower, yet nothing overpowers them. Yeah. They flow so smoothly, resistance becomes irrelevant. The rigid break, the soft endure.
And the quantum view supports this. Resonance, not force.
That's the argument in Breath of the Cosmos. In a field-based reality, the strongest force is resonance, coherence. You don't have to be violent to change the world. You just have to vibrate truer than the lie. Alignment transforms. Particles collapse softly into form.
So softness is alignment. Trusting the pattern.
Yes. It's moral and metaphysical elegance. We see it everywhere. Kindness breaking through cruelty, a child's honesty disarming pretense, a quiet presence saving a life. Real power is in presence, not domination.
Even biology shows this adaptive systems survive, rigid ones break.
Precisely. Bustles need flexibility. Ecosystems need evolution. Societies need to yield. Souls that can't soften become cruel. To live this paradox strength through softness means abandoning the illusion that force is the final answer.
Hold your ground with stillness, not fists. Speak truth to free, not to win.
Yes. Kneel before the holy, even if the world calls it weakness. Think of the prophet crying in prayer, Lao Tzu walking away from power, the quantum fields humming invisibly, signs of sacred power, not failure.
So let the world shout.
Let it measure strength and volume. We're learning a different way. Let your silence fracture lies. Let your softness disarm fear. Let your gentleness be your revolution. Because ultimately, the soft voice echoes longest.
A gentle revolution. That's powerful. Which leads directly to justice.
Yeah.
If we put down the sword of force, what does justice look like? In our world obsessed with retribution, could true justice be radically different?
It fundamentally has to be if we follow this path. Our usual model of justice is tied to control, punishment, dominance. But the justice revealed here is restorative, relational, rooted in surrender.
How does Islam balance justice and mercy? Justice, all, is one of God's names, right?
Yes, it's fundamental. Allah commands justice and good conduct. But crucially, it's never separate from mercy. My mercy prevails over my wrath. The goal isn't vengeance, it's restoring sacred balance, equilibrium.
Forgiveness is key then.
Central. The Qur'an praises those who restrain anger and pardon people. Mercy is seen as the highest strength. And beyond legality, there's ihsan, doing what is beautiful, pure, luminous.
And Taoism. No judge, just harmony and disharmony.
Exactly. Justice isn't enforced from outside. It emerges naturally when people flow with the way. Lao Tzu even suggested that when the Tao is forgotten, then kindness and morality arise as concepts. When we lose the natural path, we create systems to mimic it, replacing love with law, flow with force.
So the Taoist ethic is, don't interfere, let things find their balance.
Pretty much. A refusal to dominate, not impose justice, but stop obstructing harmony. Let the water find its level. Let justice emerge organically.
And the quantum perspective, justice as coherence.
Yes, in Breath of the Cosmos, the universe doesn't punish, it corrects. The field does not judge. What is misaligned collapses. What is true resonates. It affirms moral consequence. Harmful actions create destructive waves. Loving actions create harmonics. Justice happens naturally if we stop resisting the design.
So the path is alignment, not dominance. Harmony without harm.
That's the goal. In practice, confront injustice with fierce love, not hate. Protest without violence. Refuse to lie. Forgive when revenge feels good. Let ethics flow from your core, not your wounds.
But resist spiritual ego, believing you're more righteous.
Absolutely crucial, Qur'an. Do not claim yourselves to be pure, Tao. He who stands on tiptoe is not steady. True justice is humble. It heals. Surrender justice doesn't excuse evil, but it refuses to become evil in response. It stands firm with compassion. Fights only from love, not fear.
It's the sacred work of setting things right by being right with the source.
Beautifully said. Let your heart be a balance, your words clean water, your hands remember mercy. Justice isn't just what you do to others, it's what you allow love to do through you.
A justice that flows from within. Which brings us back to this profound idea. Maybe we were born in harmony. Maybe the work isn't invention, but return. Okay, this is where it gets really interesting.
It really is profound. This thread runs through so many traditions. We started in harmony, and the journey is about coming home, remembering, not creating something new. Islam calls it fitra.
The innate primordial nature.
Exactly, aligned with the divine from birth. The Prophet Muhammad said, every child is born upon the fitra. Then culture shapes beliefs, but the soul's origin is with God, in alignment.
So fitra is being, not just belief. The instinct to bow, love, wonder.
Yes. The Qur'an says, adhere to the fitra of Allah upon which He has created all people. True Islam in this sense is remembrance, returning to that blueprint.
And Taoism has the uncarved block poo.
The same idea, wholeness untouched by social conditioning, ego, striving. The Tao isn't something out there to chase. It's already within, just buried under layers of false identity. Stop obstructing it.
And Breath of the Cosmos calls it resonance, remembering divinity.
Yes, the rhythm of resonance. We don't need to become divine. We need to remember we already are, at our core. The field remembers what you forgot. It hums your original name when you go still enough to hear it.
It's ontological. Yielding makes us whole. Fighting fractures us.
That's the essence. Think of young children. They weep and laugh freely, stare at ants, trust unconditionally. That's divine fluency.
Before society trains it out of us with competition, posture, accumulation.
We forget the river, build dams, call it civilization.
So how do we return?
Not by striving harder, but by softening.
Qur'an. And he found you lost and guided you. Tao. Returning is the motion of the Tao. Yielding is the way of the Tao. The field never left. It waits for our coherence.
Unbecoming what never served us. Reclaiming who we always were.
Exactly. Breathing again, walking without pretending, trusting that quiet inner knowing that you're not broken, just buried. And this harmony isn't uniformity. Fitra isn't sameness. The Tao doesn't erase uniqueness. The field allows each particle its own dance within the whole song. True religion is congruence with your deepest nature. It's not about going backward, but unbecoming. To become who you've always been. Reclaiming stillness, joy, intimacy. You don't need a new identity. You need to remember the one before names. You don't need to be better. You need to come home.
Precisely.
Wow. That's a deeply hopeful message to end on. So we've really journeyed today, haven't we? Through Islam, Taoism, quantum pantheism, all pointing towards surrender. Not as weakness, but as this profound path to freedom, resonance, peace.
From active trust, tawakkul, to effortless flow, wu-wei. From collapsing illusions to rediscovering that original harmony, fitra. Bring it all back home.
Remember, it's a daily rhythm, a lifestyle. Finding it in presence and letting go of outcomes and the quiet strength of softness and letting love guide justice. It's choosing to flow with the universe, not fight against it.
So maybe the invitation for everyone listening is those two simple questions.
I think so. Ask yourself honestly, where am I resisting right now? And then maybe even more importantly, what would trust look like here, in this situation, in this moment?
Yes. Take that with you. What parts of your life, your routines, your expectations, maybe even how you see yourself, what are you holding on to just a little too tightly? And what profound peace, what unexpected beauty, what amazing potential might bloom if you just loosened your grip just a little and allowed yourself to truly dance with the world. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.